Welcome back to another card review. We just had UFC 310 in Las Vegas, Pantoja versus Asakura. Of course, Pantoja coming out with the round 2 submission win, which was my final prediction on our whiteboard that we do with all of our friends. So I got that one locked in perfectly. I was feeling like the levels were going to be a little bit different for Pantoja. He was going to be just levels above. The UFC is clearly the best promotion. We've seen this time and time again. Asakura, I felt like, yes, he was going to have some success on the feet. Maybe he would have lasted a couple more rounds, but eventually settled on 2 rounds, and that's exactly what happened. Pantoja looked good. His striking looked extremely crisp, but we're going to break down the entire card really quickly. We're going to go through early prelims, and then we're going to get into the main card and some crazy judging. I cannot keep making these videos and not talking about the judges. They are just so bad. Every single time, there's at least a couple of decisions. I think this one was just one mainly bad decision, but we'll get to it. I'm sure you guys know which one I'm talking about. And there's also some surprises. There was some big surprises on this card for me. In particular, I did not expect Dooho Choi to go out there and just look absolutely unbelievable against Nate Landwehr. That really surprised me. But let's get into it. Let's do the early prelims. By the way, I'm going to try and do this one take, so no cuts. Let's go. First on the card, we had Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Lucas Bresky. This one pretty much went exactly how I predicted in our prediction videos. Kennedy got the first round KO. I said early rounds KO. He looked good for a heavyweight. He didn't look great for a heavyweight. Kennedy is coming up from light heavyweight. If you didn't know, this is his second fight in heavyweight. Lucas Bresky, he's just kind of a, bottom of the barrel, average, unranked heavyweight, nothing special about him. So Kennedy was the large betting favorite. He should have won this fight easily, and he did. One thing I will say that the stats don't really show on here, I guess they do. Total strikes, 32 for Bresky, 29 for Kennedy. Kennedy got hit way too much in this fight. You cannot be getting hit by someone who's this slow. If you're Kennedy, you're coming up from light heavyweight, you should be faster. And this is what I said in my predictions. I think Kennedy should have had a much easier time with this. Oh, also, ignore my T in the frame here. I'm tired. Anyways, Kennedy, yeah, he looked decent, didn't look great. That's all I'm going to say. Moving on to, Clay Guida versus Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper's so good, man. Like, what more do you want to say? Chase Hooper is that guy. He locked up the first round submission armbar. And if you missed his post-fight interview, he said that he was training with Mikey Musumeci and Mikey taught him a few tricks, and this is one of those tricks. I'm not sure what specifically it was about the armbar, maybe some of the transitions or something, but it's great to see Chase Hooper training with high-level people because that's just going to help his career so much. He's still so young. I believe he's 25 now. Yeah, he's been with UFC for 5 years, so that makes sense. He's 25, and he looked amazing, getting a win over a veteran like Clay Guida. Let's see, total strikes, 6 for Clay Guida. Yeah, there wasn't much offense on the feet. 14 for Chase Hooper. I mean, this ended pretty fast, so the numbers don't really tell much of a story. But what I will say is that Chase Hooper's striking looked very good, like the commentators were saying. It looked very crisp, very clean. He was maybe a little bit nervous in there, it looked like, or just anxious, get that first couple minutes nerves out. He got hit a couple times by Clay Guida, but eventually he's just too good. He's just too good getting it to the ground. It's too easy for him. He was all over Clay Guida, and I know Chase Hooper's a good grappler and a great submission artist, but I didn't expect this. So I feel like I just said that UFC line where DC's like, we know this was going to be a war. We know this was going to be a stand and bang, but we didn't expect this kind of, you know what I'm saying. Next up, Michael Chiesa versus Max Griffin. Total strikes, 54 for Michael Chiesa, 18 for Max Griffin. Man, that's not what I expected. I expected Max Griffin to be the one advancing on the feet and kind of piecing up Michael Chiesa, and Chiesa was only winning the rounds because he was able to get it to the ground, which is partly true because that's what Chiesa was able to do, and he was eventually able to get a round 3 submission. And so far, I went 3 for 3 for picks on this. I mean, it was pretty easy to predict the prelims, but Michael Chiesa could have sold this parlay for us, but he didn't, so that's good. He had 2 out of 8 takedowns landed. it wasn't as easy as I thought for him to take down Max Griffin, but Max Griffin he didn't show any offense. From what I can remember, I haven't watched the fight back, but Max Griffin just did not put up enough offense to win any of the rounds. Michael Chiesa looked okay, and then he locked up that submission. And yeah, it was a decent fight. Nothing crazy. I didn't expect anything crazy. Moving up the card, we have the legend Joshua Van versus Cody Durden. Joshua Van is a dog. He is fighting all the time. He was scheduled to fight so many times this year. I think he did fight 3 or 4 times this year. So he's been absolutely killing it. I want to see him fight more because he's one of the most exciting flyweight prospects right now. Also, let's look at the significant strike number, 165 to 70. 165 in a 3-round fight. That is the second most significant strikes landed in a flyweight bout, according to the UFC. They said that on commentary afterwards. And I actually said that to Dylan. I was like, that's probably close to a record. And it was, but it's flyweight, so they punch a lot. What else? Joshua Van, I mean, he put on the pressure. He put out the volume like crazy. He didn't have the power to put him out, which is why I went to decision. But I mean, up until now, I was like, this card is absolutely unreal. We've had 4 fights and 4 incredible almost finishes. I mean, this one, Cody Durden, if he didn't have a chin of steel, he could have been finished multiple times. Let's move on. We got Chris Weidman versus Eric Anders. All right, where do I start with this one? This one is weird. Chris Weidman went out there and then he got caught pretty much immediately by Eric Anders, which I wasn't expecting. I did predict Eric Anders, but I thought it would take a while for him to get going at least. And then Eric Anders goes out and illegal knees him, which is unfortunate. Chris Weidman, fair enough, fair play. He kept going. He took his time. He ended up getting back up and then dropping Eric Anders and then having him on the ground for a little bit till the end of the first. And then in the second round, Eric Anders was able to get it done and the ref stopped it pretty quickly. So nothing really more to say there. That wasn't a fight that I was extremely looking forward to or hyped about. So let's move up to the prelims now. We had Randy Brown versus Brian Battle. Brian Battle winning that fight by split decision, which I think is very fair. People are saying, Randy Brown robbed, Brian Battle didn't deserve that. I think it was fair. Obviously, we're fans of Brian Battle on this channel. I was disappointed that he didn't make weight properly. He was 4 pounds over, unfortunately, so that is a decent advantage for him. But it also looks like something was off with this weight cut in general because he did not go out there like he did go out there against Kevin Jousset in their last fight in Paris. This fight was a very different side, in my opinion, of Brian Battle. A lot of clinch work, which might have been on Randy Brown's part as well, keeping in the clinch. But it was not an enjoyable fight to watch, especially when you're expecting a stand and bang war with Brian Battle and Randy Brown. So it just was like a little bit disappointing in my opinion. And I'm sure you could have given it either way. I could see Brian Battle, I could see Randy Brown, but for me, in my opinion, Brian Battle did enough against the cage in that 3rd round to swing it for him. He got enough clinch strikes. He had tons of clinch strikes. So I think it's very fair that they gave it to Brian Battle, but I could see it go either way. Let's move on. Yeah, this one. Movsar Evloev versus Aljamain Sterling. It went how we all thought it would. It was a very high level matchup on the ground. Some of the exchanges on the ground, some of the grappling, some of the scrambling was very interesting. It was very high level. Both of them looked extremely even. I thought one of them, I predicted Movsar. So at this point in the card, I was 7 for 7. And I predicted Movsar. Looked great, but I thought he would look stronger. I thought he was going to be physically dominating Aljamain Sterling, and that just wasn't the case. In fact, I think Aljo looked a little bit more controlling. Aljo had more control throughout the rounds. It doesn't say control time here, but yeah, total strikes. Wow. Aljo only threw 45 compared to 136, but but significant strikes are 12-8. Holy, that's brutal. Yeah, that's average Aljamain Sterling fight right there. Takedown 6 compared to 4. So it was an even matchup. The matchmakers did a really good job with this fight. But come on. I just wanted to see something more. I wanted to see someone prove why they shouldn't be on the prelims, and they proved exactly why they're on the prelims, because casual fans aren't going to want to watch a high level grappling match. That's probably not why they watch UFC, unfortunately. And for me, even, it's not the most exciting fight in my opinion. But Movsar ended up picking the win up. I believe, was it by split decision? Don't quote me on that. But yes, it was by split decision. Yeah, it's a good win for Movsar. I was happy I got my pick right. In the moment, I'm going to be honest, I did think Aljo won, but that was just me. So let's move on. There's a train in the background now. Hopefully you guys can't hear that. Vicente Luque versus Temba Garimbo. This is the first one that I got wrong. I predicted Temba Garimbo. I thought he was going to go out there and somehow find a win. I don't know why I thought that, but Vicente Luque made it look easy. He dropped Temba Garimbo hard, straight. Temba Garimbo walked straight into that one, and it was pretty much over from there. Dropped him, was able to get the submission locked up. It was great. It was honestly great. Vicente Luque looked absolutely unbelievable. I was excited for Temba Garimbo to get into the rankings. I thought this was a great shot for him, but we clearly saw that he's not ready yet. And this one just ended really early, so we didn't get to see that much else. Let's move on. The featured prelim, Dominic Reyes versus Anthony Smith. Man, you got to feel bad. As much as a lot of the MMA YouTube channels clown on Anthony Smith, Lionheart, it was sad to see. It was really sad to see. His friend passed away, and the commentary booth was talking a lot about that. And then he puts down his gloves at the end of the fight. And apparently, if you guys watched the fight, you probably would have saw in the first round where Anthony Smith was just leaning his head, blocking with his head pretty much, like Yuri Prohaska does. And apparently he said to Dominic Reyes, just hit me, I want to feel something. So that's pretty sad to hear from a UFC fighter. And from Anthony Smith, he seemed very emotional. That's probably why it was difficult for him to make weight. His head probably wasn't exactly in it. So I think it's good for him to retire. He's 38 and 21. Like, you've had a very, very long career. You've had good fights, and maybe it's time to pack it up now. That's completely fair. I don't understand. Like, I always go back to that retirement of Carla Esparza, I think it was, just recently, and they have like a whole video package for her. But for some reason, when they're legends of the sport retire, like Stipe or even someone like Anthony Smith, Tony Ferguson didn't retire. Who else? A bunch of people put down the gloves at UFC 309. I can't remember the other one. But yeah, there's one more, and they just don't have video packages for any of those guys. So it's like, why do you have a video package for Carla Esparza, but none of your actual, Carla Esparza did have achievements, but you know what I mean. People know Anthony Smith more than Carla Esparza. Anyways, back to the fight. I am rambling now. I got to get through this. Dominic Reyes picks up a second round KO. The ref kind of just stepped in. It was a brutal beating with elbows on the ground from Dominic Reyes. And eventually the ref said, all right, I've seen enough. Significant strikes were 121-21. So it was just a complete beatdown of Anthony Smith. I think Dominic Reyes looked okay. Like in the stand-up, he looked okay. I don't think he's going to be able to move up the rankings very far. I think we know that he has not the best chin anymore. So I'm concerned that if he fights a higher level kickboxer who has some power left in their punches, it might not go the way for Dominic Reyes. But let's move on to the main card. This is where things really started to turn downhill. Up until this, I was like, yeah, this is a great card. This is like a 8.5, 9 out of 10 card so far. It's been great. Then we get to the main card. Now, I'm just annoyed still that they put Nate Landwehr versus Doo Ho Choi and Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie on the main card. Kron Gracie, we knew it was going to be bad. It was awful. It was worse than I expected. He just pulls guard. Man, pisses me off. And Bryce Mitchell couldn't do anything about it. Bryce Mitchell, we're going to talk about it. Nate Landwehr, Doo Ho Choi. I did not expect Doo Ho Choi to come out here after only fighting like 5 times in the last 8 years and absolutely outclass Nate Landwehr everywhere, in the striking, in the grappling, like Bilal Muhammad says. I'm better in the grappling, in the striking. 32 to 114 total strikes and 78 significant strikes for Doo Ho Choi. 4 takedowns. Like, it was just domination. And then he did end up getting the TKO in round 3. Unbelievable. absolutely unbelievable. He looked like a reinvented version of himself. I think, like, is that fair to say? Let me know if you guys think the same, but he looked absolutely unreal. So very happy that he got the win. And can we just say, like, Asian fighters are so tough. They're just on top right now. I love watching them fight. Probably my favorite nationality to fight right now, if I'm being honest. Moving up the card, Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie. Here we go. Where do I start? 6 strikes from the entire fight for Kron Gracie. The GOAT strikes again. Yeah, this was exactly what you'd expect Kron Gracie to do on a main card in 2024. And Bryce Mitchell, he doesn't have the power to put Kron Gracie out on the feet, or maybe even the confidence anymore. Like, there must be a confidence gap after he's lost twice. Ilia Topuria beat him up, and then Josh Emmett brutalized him and left him foaming at the mouth. So I'm sure he needs to get some confidence back, and I'm sure that's why the UFC booked this fight, because they don't want to kill an American prospect like that. So they want to get him back up into the rankings a little bit, have him have a little bit of a comeback. Kron Gracie, though, come on, this should be a layup, and you took him to the 3rd round. This is a joke of a fight, honestly. It was bad to watch. If anyone enjoyed watching that, fair enough. The only good part of it was the end where Bryce Mitchell ended up getting him with the elbows. 2 elbows and Kron Gracie was out. Like, that's it. The ref stopped it, and fair enough. The ref didn't want to see anymore, neither did any of the fans. Kron Gracie almost got a armbar. I think it was at the end of round 2. Bryce Mitchell was like, I thought it was going to break. I thought my arm was going to break, but I wasn't going to tap. That's how close we were to having Kron Gracie ranked number 14 or number 13 or whatever Bryce Mitchell is. So think about that in an alternate timeline, and man, I would have been happy. It would have been hilarious. The robbery. Is it a robbery? Is that fair to say? Let me know in the comments. Is Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov a robbery? I know robbery is a strong word. We don't use it lightly around here. I will say I disagreed strongly with the decision. I won't say robbery, but I disagreed strongly because I believe Dana was saying it was the 2nd round where they were going to give it to Gane. That was the swing round, if you guys didn't know. I thought the 3rd round was the swing round. I thought Alexander Volkov low-key dominated Cyril Gane in the 2nd round. Like, I thought that was Volkov's best round. But the judge who gave it to Cyril Gane, I believe Dana said that they were trying to tell him that it was the 2nd round that they gave to Cyril Gane, which blows my mind. Like, if you go back and watch the fight, absolutely unbelievable. Let's look at the numbers. Don't really tell the story. It was 39-43 SIG strikes. So very, very close in that sense. And then 1 submission attempt to Alexander Volkov to 2 from Cyril Gane. Where was Cyril Gane's 2 submission attempts? Did I miss that? And then 3 takedowns for Alexander Volkov. And Cyril Gane, apparently he's a wrestler now. So 2 takedowns from him. It does look like Cyril Gane has seriously improved his wrestling game, which is good. He needs to become more well-rounded for sure. But I don't think this went his way tonight. Alexander Volkov looked like the best version of himself. He looked like he did against Sergey Pavlovich. What? To quote Kendrick, was it the braids? Because the braids might have screwed Alexander Volkov over here. I felt like if he got his hair combed real nice in the corner when he was sitting down, he would have had the presence of mind to KO Cyril Gane. But unfortunately, he had braids in. I was very sad to see the combing not happen. I just disagree really strongly with this result. I don't think Cyril Gane did enough to win that fight, especially in the 2nd and 3rd round. I think he won the 1st round. I think 29-28 should have been the decision for Volkov. And I feel awful for him because he was on a 4-fight win streak. He's trying to get back into title contention and get his rematch with Tommy Aspinall. And now he can't. He has to go back and fight. Who's he going to fight? Jailton Almeida, if Jailton Almeida wins. And Jailton Almeida is probably going to submit him. I'm going to kill myself. So, yeah, let me have a drink of my tea real quick. But go down in the comments and let me know if you thought Alexander Volkov versus Cyril Gane, if this was a robbery or not. If anyone had Cyril Gane on their scorecards, please let me know and why. All right, let's move on to Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Machado Gary. I did get this one right as well. I think we did pretty good. I had Bryce Mitchell on the main card. I didn't have Doo Ho Choi. I had Nate Landwehr. Did I have Cyril Gane or did I go Volkov? I know with our friends when we watched the card, I went Cyril Gane. I think went Alexander Volkov predicting on the YouTube channel. So either way, I got it right because the judges said Cyril Gane, but realistically, it was Alexander Volkov. And then I got both these ones right as well. So pretty good on predictions. We had a very strong night. But yeah, this is Shavkat's first decision win. I don't know if anyone predicted that. I didn't. I certainly didn't, but I should have. Should have predicted that. Should have known. 102. Let's see. Significant strikes. 42-37 in favor of Ian Gary, but Shavkat was landing the much harder strikes. And if we rewind to all the rounds, round one, Shavkat. It was a lot of tying up in the clinch. Ian Gary had great takedown defense, like seriously massively improved, which I'm sure all that training at Shootbox is doing for him. He looks great, but he didn't have a control on the fence. He was getting controlled along the fence, kind of like Mario Batista. Shavkat turned into prime Mario Batista, that's all I'm going to say. And then Shavkat landed one big strike at the end of round one, and that's enough to swing the round. So round one, clearly in favor of Shavkat. Round two, pretty much the exact same thing. Held him up against the cage in the clinch, landed one big shot in the exchanges, and that was by far enough to swing the round for Shavkat. So now he's up 2-0. It was looking like a clean sweep. And then Ian Gary wins the third round. He lands way more leg strikes. Shavkat, again, had like one moment where it was decent, but Ian Gary was able to really pick up the pace because I think he knew he needed to at least win the next 3 rounds if he wanted to actually have a shot at winning this fight. That's what his coaches probably told him. So he picked up the pace, won the third round, and then the fourth round came along, and Shavkat was able to pick up that fourth round, and that secured the victory. But then the fifth round, when Ian Gary almost had a rear naked choke, he had that body lock, the body triangle, and man, I know we were all scared for a second. Ian Gary was not going to be the first man to submit Shavkat Rakhmonov or even beat him. So I knew in my heart that Shavkat was safe, but I was a little bit scared. Was it a letdown? Yes, it was a little bit of a letdown. The matchup was great. It should have been a great matchup. It was a difficult stylistic matchup for Shavkat. I think with the takedown defense of Ian Gary, first of all, can I say we have to give Ian Gary his props. We have to give Ian Gary his flowers for actually improving so much and taking this fight on short notice. His stock went up a little bit, but not that much because of the performance. Like the performance wasn't anything special except for that fifth round where he almost got submission. Other than that, it's Ian Gary. He looks like a point fighter. Is that unreasonable to say? Am I going to get flamed in the comments for that? Ian Gary looks like a point fighter against people in the rankings. Like, I'm sorry, but he hasn't gotten a KO against anyone in the rankings, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's right. So this is vintage Ian Gary point fighting against Shavkat, who was very timid in this fight. And as soon as they went out in the first round and they stood about 5 feet apart or 10 feet apart, completely out of range, I was like, all right. Yeah, this is going to be that kind of fight where they feel each other out a lot. And I was right. And from there on, it's about what I expected. I expected Shavkat to be able to take him down a little bit easier, but he wasn't able to do that. So it is what it is. Let's move on. I'm happy that Shavkat got the win. What's next for Shavkat? Let me know. Oh, well, no, sorry. What's next for Ian Gary? Because Shavkat's obviously going for the title shot. Ian Gary, maybe a Leon Edwards matchup if he can turn around for the London main event. That would be massive, actually. Because he's from Ireland. Leon's from England. So that matchup, I'm sure they'd have a absolutely massively sold out arena for that. I would love to see that. Any matchup though, like Ian Gary, rebooking Ian Gary versus Joaquin Buckley, if he wins, that would be good. Booking Ian Gary versus Colby Covington, that would be a good fight because I'm sure that would be a great press conference. But there's lots of options for both these guys. They're both unbelievable athletes. Let's move on to Alexandre Pantoja picking up the second round submission to Kai Asakura. This was a domination. Like I said in the intro of this video, the UFC is genuinely levels above other promotions, and this shows it. Everything shows it. The significant strike numbers were 32 for Pantoja to 17 for Asakura, and 3 takedowns for Pantoja. But Pantoja's good at everything. Like, how are you going to beat him? How is anyone going to beat him? He's great on the ground. He's improving every fight. He looks more calculated. I think, in this fight than any other fight I've seen. He was just on his game. He was catching Kai Sakura in every exchange, and when Kai Sakura was backing up, he was clipping him. So it was just bad for Asakura at the start. But man, when I tell you that when that flying knee landed for Kai Sakura, when Pantoja shot for his first takedown, the room exploded. Like, we were hyped. If Pantoja would have gotten flatline KO'd from that, it would have been absolutely hilarious. And then Kai Sakura threw that knee, the same knee, about 3 or 4 times, but it didn't land quite as clean any of the other times, unfortunately. So he wasn't able to get it done. Look, I love his style. I love his personality that he brings to the UFC. I want to see him keep on fighting high-level people. I hope he can get a striking matchup, maybe against like a Steve Erceg. Tell me that's not a good matchup. Steve Erceg versus Kai Sakura. Comeback matchup for both of them. It'd be a great fight. Pantoja, what do you do? What do you do to beat him? How do you beat him? He's top 5, top 4 pound for pound fighters. And I don't think this fight necessarily proved that. It definitely helped his case. I think he should have already been a top 5 pound for pound fighter. He's been defending his belt. This is his 3rd title defense, 4th title win. He's won against everyone in the top 10 like once or twice. He has wins almost everyone in the top 10. It's just going to be rematches from here on out, unless, good Lord, my stutters, unless Tagir Ulanbekov can move up the rankings pretty quickly. That's about the only fresh matchup that I can see happening in the next year. I say release him on the bantamweights. Release him. Let him fight Umar if Umar gets the belt, even though Umar versus Sean O'Malley is probably what's going to happen if Sean O'Malley just sits out for a little while, or Peter Yan is up there. There's a lot of matchups. They would have to give Pantoja an immediate title shot just because of what he's done at flyweight. You can't give him a Peter Yan matchup. That would be really fun, though. How fun would Peter Yan versus Alexander Pantoja be? There's lots of fun matchups for him at bantamweight. I don't know. What do you do with him? He's too good. He's too good at flyweight. The call out at the end against Demetrius Johnson ain't coming back. We know that, guys. Come on, be realistic. We know that. But that's going to do it for the recap of UFC 310. Make sure you guys subscribe because we are trying to get to 2.5K. We're very close. So thank you guys so much for the support, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.